Okay, this video is for you helicopter guys. I just want to explain how yaw on the Stingray is different than yaw on a helicopter. And it's important to note, as a helicopter pilot, a lot of your instincts that you've learned over the years don't directly apply to the Stingray. In fact, in some cases, your instincts may be hurting you in your enjoyment with the Stingray because they simply fly differently. The two main areas to point out that they are different is the initial response around the middle is quite a bit different on the Stingray. And the place where the Stingray gets stuck, where the rudder doesn't work as well, is different than where a helicopter gets stuck and doesn't work as well. So part of learning to fly them is knowing where those are and how to tailor your flying to either avoid the problem area and stay in the really good area where it flies well. Okay, to the first one, where the initial response around the center. The big thing you'll notice when you fly them, a helicopter, especially in modern helicopters, when you fly them, when you take off and test rudder, they're usually very crisp, very hard on rudder, just pop, 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 really crisp. And we take that as an indication on the helicopter is a very good tail rotor. The Stingray doesn't have as crisp a tail rotor, just because of the way it functions, the way a quad functions, the variation of torques. It's a slight delay in the response of the tail rotor. Now this is faster than you would have a normal quad, but it's still not as fast as it is with a helicopter. If you take this off and turn it, you're going to get a pretty quick, pretty good response, but not that hard, just solid wall feel of a stop. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have a good tail rotor. Like with helicopters, if you took a helicopter off and turned it and stopped and it had a slightly slower tail rotor, your thought is, oh, well, when I try to do some more advanced stuff, my tail rotor is going to blow out, or it's going to stall on me, it's going to stop, or, you know, it won't have the feel I'm going to want as I do things. That's where your helicopter instinct is slightly wrong for a Stingray, because the way they function in the air is simply different. When you fly a helicopter, as you're going through things, the helicopter is very sighted where it gets loads. One, the rudder is, in some cases, counteracting torque, in other cases going with torque, and the way the wind loads a helicopter, you can be very high load, almost no load, very high load, almost no load as you're going through stuff. And the tail rotor on a helicopter has to be responded at very quickly, because it's going from a lot of load to no load to a lot of load to no load through all kinds of things. So it has to not only be very fast in response, but very powerful in response. The Stingray doesn't have that, because as you turn it, you're increasing lift here, decreasing lift here, but you don't have that high side load, no load, high side load, no load like you do with a helicopter. So you're not needing that crisp and instant throw from one side to the other to the back again to be able to just do high-speed pirouettes. It doesn't have that. You're simply going through and it's pirouetting nicely, even though the motor load doesn't really change. An example would be sideways, going fast sideways with a helicopter. As you would like a knife edge fall, you give rudder, there's going to be cases where it's going to start to load off and stall on you, and you would know never on this side where it's starting to load to get torque to come out at the bottom, because it's not going to do it. It's going to load off and may even crash. The Stingray doesn't have that. The Stingray, as you're turning, doesn't tend to load. So if you're doing a pirouette falling and you want to pull out while pirouetting, it doesn't care. It'll do it fine. It may still load, but it won't load any different than it did if you just pulled out straight without pirouetting. So the addition of the pirouetting doesn't cause any loading or problems with the way it flies. So you can flow through things solid pirouetting and the motor never changes relative to you doing the same maneuver without pirouetting. So that's one area where you just learn how to anticipate differently. And the knife edge example also points up where the tail rotors tend to have problems. Like a helicopter in knife edge falling, that's where you can often get stuck. Either at high speed sideways or high speed falling in the wind or something else. The tail rotor can often just stop because there's such a high load there. They tend to stall or not have enough power to get through the things. Stingray doesn't have that problem. The place the Stingray has a problem where the tail rotor tends to stop on you is if you go up into a position, let's just say a stall turn, and the wind's just right where you go to absolute zero and you have no lift there. Because it's using torque to turn based on lift, not having any lift, it really can't do a good pirouette. So if you go up there and you don't get much tail response, you just give a little power to come off that center point and it does a nice pirouette. But you can find ranges where it'll get stuck and won't want to turn very well. So that's the Stingray's equivalent of a helicopter falling and the tail stalling. They both have a place they're not happy, it's just a different place. It's a matter of learning how to find those. So the main thing is learning how the yaw is different. It has several things that are better than a helicopter, and it has some things that aren't as good as a helicopter. They're different areas. So if you pick it up as a good helicopter pilot and fly it only in the places where a helicopter flies well, you're going to be a little disappointed, because some things it does poorly are exactly what a helicopter does amazing. And some of the things it does amazing, as far as some of the things the Stingray does amazing, the helicopter doesn't do as well. So it's a matter of giving it a try and learning, exploring a little bit of what it does well, what it doesn't do well, and understanding that is different than a helicopter. It's going to have some areas it does very well, and you can enjoy those. And in some areas it doesn't do quite as well, and you know to avoid those. Just like with a helicopter, you know to avoid what it does poorly and stick to the stuff it does well. So it's just recognizing they are different and finding what they are.